SocialBites. This is a design meeting for a briefing and a discussion on the SocialBite app construction. But it's beyond that, it's really a discussion on your internship so that you understand the jobs that you'll be working on during your internship and you know exactly how to go about them. So we start off with SocialBites. We'll move on to a different product also. So this is the one that I thought we might start with, and then I'll brief you on the next one in the next meeting. So I'll share this link with you just in case you want to go through it for the purpose of going over what we discussed. Okay, so for today, Nelly, what I want us to look at is the books which I sent you so that you have a clarity of what you're supposed to do now and what is expected of you in the end. All right. And all this is in line with your internship so that you understand what it is or how it is that you're progressing through your internship journey. That's the whole idea. Okay. If you have questions also, feel free. Yeah, I think that's really how I want to start. So this meeting, we'll have it every Thursday at this time. And it's really at most a half an hour meeting. And what I want us to do when we meet is to go through the work that you've done, see what is difficult, and then I'll update you on what's new. Okay, so there are those three elements. Updating you on what's new means that the client may have said something, may have added some information. I may have discovered new information. And based on what's unfolding, I will now brief you on that. That's what's new, the updates. In terms of review, I'll have given you a workbook and we're about to go through it. And that workbook will give you a sense of exactly what you need to do. Okay, so you know how the workbook is structured. It has the theory, which is just explaining what you're supposed to do, the background knowledge. And then, of course, it has the steps on what you're supposed to do exactly. This is internship, so I presume you have knowledge. The knowledge you've learned in school is to be applied now in the context of, you can say, production, but like what we're doing. But learning and working never stop. So even though you know stuff, new things will arrive on the scene and we have to learn them. So it's still a learning environment. Even when you're in an internship, it's considered a learning exercise. All right. So if you have issues, questions, feel free. The idea is that we succeed with the work and we do it through training and through learning. So that's the other one. And then the last one, when we meet and we discuss, is to look at problems. You may have situations and they may be preventing you from progressing, or they might be confusing or something, but you're unable to, you need them to be resolved. So when we meet, we can also discuss such things. I would present reschedules because I'll give you a schedule. And then, of course, there might be a need to reschedule based on things which are moving and we need to be flexible with our schedule. So issues of schedule I might raise. And other things I might raise is the introductory of new knowledge. If, like for example, we had said we are going to do certain things and then things change because of the nature of life and in this kind of work, we discover something new. We might introduce new technology. We might introduce a new process. I'll raise those things with you also if it happens. Okay, it doesn't happen all the time. So that's the idea. Just 15, I mean, half an hour. And then if you have issues, you can also talk. But during the week, before we meet, in between, feel free to always reach out to me. You can reach out to me on WhatsApp or on email. That's okay, even on phone, so that you don't fall behind. The idea is not to fall behind. Okay? So if you have questions on that, just feel free. You can interrupt me anytime. It's only the two of us now. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Do you have anything you'd like to ask on what I'm saying? You're there?
I'll ask questions as we proceed with the workbook.
All right then. Okay, so I'll put up the workbook. I'll share my screen. But just before I share, I just want to orientate you on how to think in terms of external IBL, but beyond that, how to think as a person who is working in this area. And so I'll talk to you about this for 5 minutes. So, in terms of thinking, I think what is central and what is key, this is based on also what I have experienced, not so much what you will read in books, because the books are good, they give you insights of people and their situations. But life is dynamic and changing all the time. And then Kenya is unique, and Nairobi is also unique in Kenya. So, you have a lot of, you can say, what are rules, but you also have guidelines, and then you have what we call best practices. So I'm speaking now to the best practices when you're getting into this field, and how to orientate your thinking so that you can progress and succeed um, in any field, but it applies to this one also. And the one I'm talking about is interactive media design. You need to have a sense of career growth and progression. You need to have that sense. Now, some of these things I'm telling you is purely everything is purely from experience. But some of the things you hear, in fact, many of the things you hear are not out of experience. So what happens is people will tell you things, but that's not how it works. So what I'm telling you is how things work, not really what you will read somewhere else. Okay, so this is the hard news that you need to internalize if you're going to progress and succeed in this field. That's really what I'm talking about. So one of the things which people don't tell you is that um, when you're in a profession like this one, interactive media design, what people don't tell you is that you need to tell yourself that you are an interactive media specialist, and you are. Even if you are a student, you are. It's just that you're at a different level of progress, but you're still an interactive media designer. You need to tell yourself that. And why do I say it? It's very important because you'll be asked many times, who are you? And if you stammer, or if you're unclear, or if you say something else, then that moment is lost. What moment is lost? The moment to progress is lost. When someone asks you directly, who are you? It's because they want to see how can we work together. That's what they're not saying. They're saying, who are you? But really what they're saying is, how can we work together? If you don't understand that that's what's going on, you need to define yourself clearly that I'm an interactive media designer and this is what I do. Okay? Nobody will tell you that. It's very important. I'll tell you why it's important in a minute. The other thing is that you need to have a strong sense of what you do. You need to have that strong sense of it. And how you know you have a strong sense of what you do is by knowing what you don't do. If you know what you cannot do, or what you don't do, or what you don't do well, then it follows that you have a sense of what you do and what you can do well. This is very important. I'll tell you again why it's important. First of all, on the other issue, is that people don't want to invest their money in anyone or any activity where they would lose it. Even you would not want to invest your money in any activity or in anyone who would lose it. Nobody would want that, and you would not want that yourself. Now, if somebody was to handle your money by way of time, effort, even resources, it doesn't have to be cash. It's just that they're spending time, so they need to be paid. They're spending resources and effort applying themselves, so they have to be paid. That's money. If someone is doing that on your behalf, you don't want them to do it if you know that these people, first of all, don't know what they're doing. First of all, again, they don't know who they are. That's number two. And they don't have a sense of purpose. You see, if they don't have these things, nobody wants to put their money there. This is real. This is how just even you are like that. If someone's trying to sell you shoes and then you find that they don't know what a shoe is, they don't understand what they're selling you because you're asking questions and not answering. They don't understand what your interests are, why you'd want to buy a shoe. You know, if they show you that they know nothing about your interests, you're not aligned. The likelihood you'll buy those shoes from them is very low. But you want to buy shoes, you'll buy them from someone who seems to understand. That's how it is. Why do I say all these things? It's significant. It influences how you react to the job. You see, when you come to the job, for example, and you have a sense of, let's say, I will do anything. Because I hear people saying that. If I bring a whole interviews. Even if I invited you to a job interview and you listen to how people answer questions, one of the questions is, who are you? Or what do you do? They'll say, I do anything, everything, in fact. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do. So if I ask you to wash dishes, you wash. Okay. That person doesn't have a sense of what they would not do, you see, professionally. So they're directionless, really. Would you give your money to someone who's directionless? The answer is no. See, that's number one. Number two is that if you, let's say, if you, let's say, are working in a job that you like, then or even work that you like, can be work that you like, then you'll find you'll spend more time on it, just more time, trying to solve problems, trying to figure out solutions. Um, Even when you're not sitting down on the machine, you're thinking about the job because you like it. That it's in your head. If you do something you don't like, then you'll find yourself spending less time on it, not thinking about it. In fact, when you're working on it, you'll be thinking about leaving the work. That's what you'll be doing. So, my advice is choose a path that you like. Have a sense of what you will not do, but the goal is to know what you will do. And then know who you are. Who you are, you have preferences, you have likes, you have dislikes, you have goals, ambitions, aspirations. So, professionally, have a sense of that. That's important. When you're in a situation with people who can invest in you in terms of giving you another job or even giving you a project to work on, they're checking you out always. And they don't tell you they're doing that. It's just that they're listening to what you're answering and how you're responding. If they see that you're someone who knows themselves, you're going somewhere in the direction of your profession, you're going somewhere. You're also someone who is excited and interested in what the conversation is. And the conversation might be around your profession. You see, if you're that kind of person, then you'll find that the people seated there will remember that and will now ask you to participate in another project. Or they'll ask you to take on another job, or even give you your own project to work on, like a job, your own private job to work on. You see, so you can get into business. That's how it is. Now, people who are like that progress in the career. The ones who say they'll do anything and everything, they don't progress. The ones who say that um, the attitude is nikazi too. So when there's work, if it's there, I'll do it. Yeah, just because the work is there, they don't progress. And it's largely because people don't want to invest in those kind of people. So that's my advice to you, that you need to embrace a kind of thinking and attitude towards your life that is very purpose driven. If you do it like that, then not only do you find yourself always busy, but you also find yourself in situations where people invest in you. And then, of course, now you're growing within your profession. All right. So it's getting to orientate yourself in a direction. It also means, when I say that, you're not moving in any direction or other directions. You're moving in a unidirectional path, and people can see you can be flexible in that. That's fine. You can also be accommodating in that. That's fine. But at least the direction is clear. It's not everywhere and anywhere. No. Okay. So that one I want to encourage, and if you understand me well, then it's something that you will embrace, and you find yourself growing as an intern. So how do interns grow? You join any situation like now, you finish as you start by studying. So once you've studied, that's your starting point. But your, I would say, lecturers would be the natural gateway into the community of practitioners. So we have a community, for example, of interactive media designers or system designers, and your lecturer can be a gateway into that community. It's not always the case, but sometimes it's the case. But once you get that gateway opportunity, you take the opportunity and you're at the periphery of the profession and you start gravitating towards the center depending on your activities, the work that you do. So you start off as an intern. After 3 months, normally, you now can be employed, but you're employed on probation. And after 3 months thereafter, you're given a contract. Usually it's an annual contract, renewable. So when you're on probation, when you get the contract anyway, you become an associate, let's say, systems designer or interactive media designer. Associate simply means that you're at the beginning. That's really what it means. It's just a title there. But you've finished internship, you're not an intern. Now you know stuff, at least you can work independently to some extent. Then you work. Um, that if your progression is normal, you will stay in that state for at least a year, at least maximum 2 years, and you progress from that into what we would call now a professional designer. After, so it's like in 2 years plus the 6 months plus the 6 months, so 6 months, yeah. So it comes 3 years, you become a professional designer. Okay. Now, how do you distinguish these things? Purely by the projects you've worked on. So your portfolio matters. You can see a professional designer from their portfolio. You can also see an associate. You can also see an intern from their portfolio. You can tell. You see. So portfolio matters, but it's not everything. What matters most is your network. It's the persons who are recommending you, who are known to the community. So if you say you are a professional, someone will say, so let's see your CV. And when they see your CV, they see who's this referee, they'll ask that person. If that person is known in the industry, then if they say you're a professional, that's your level, then they'll say, oh, okay, so you have 3 years experience and you're good at what you do, they'll be taken that way, you see. So it's a kind of perception, but it's a perception that is coming through the network. You see, no one wants to spoil their name, so they don't lie about these things. And at the same time, nobody wants to take on someone who, you see, who is just saying things, but there's nothing to show for it. Okay, so you maintain your portfolio, and you should aim to build a portfolio. And it's not enough; you also need to build a network. So you have to have that network's number one, portfolio is number two, and then myself, I like to tell people, people say you're as good as your last job. I mean, those are quite ambitious people. They say you're as good as your last job. Some people say, no, you have to have certification. Those ones are less ambitious. If you go by your certificate, you're not an ambitious person in this business. But I like to think that you're as good as your next job. If you start thinking you're as good as your next job and you're not getting a next job, then something is wrong, you see. So if you're as good as your next job, it means you're wired within the community. It means that you're producing work in meaningful environments. That means environments where you're not working alone, you're working with teams and their clients, and there's an ecosystem of stakeholders, and you're involved. That means because if you're in such an environment, you'll get the next job straight out of that. You see? So so that kind of gives you a benchmark of knowing whether you're in the game or you're not in the game. All right. So that's that's when you're professional, and you're a professional for about 3 years. After 3 years of working professionally, that's like 3 plus 3 years. So you become what we would call a lead designer. You know, a lead designer is someone who's in charge of other designers. You can be a head of a team of designers. You have experience. Like 6 years is a lot. 5, 6 years, good. You see, and if it's meaningful, if you are busy, and then beyond that, you become, let's say 3 years after that, you become a seasoned designer, like a senior designer. Now you have experience. So you become like a director of design or design director. You can run a business or even run several teams because you're able to have a big picture view and a small picture view of everything. And then beyond that, you have to add 5 to 10 years. You become a guru. Now you become part of the industry. You become someone who people turn to for advice, or someone who um, decides on the direction of things. You're involved in the industry and you provide best practices yourself. See, so that's the path you're on. And why I told you that is so that at the beginning you can see the end. You can see how you're flowing. It helps to think of the end as you progress. So start thinking like that and move with some intentionality because it will help you. People want to see that now. In the industry, it's not so much about your skills or your talk. You see, if you're in academic work, like a student, how you talk is a big story, yeah. And also that certificate or the fact that you've passed exams, that's a great thing. That's in academic life. But in the industry, no. You're as good as your next job. So if you don't have a next job, then you're not good. That's what we're saying. You see, you have to be purpose driven. If you're not purpose driven, then people feel shy of you. They want to invest there. You see. So these things I'm saying are somewhat at they're at cross purposes with what you would expect as a student. All right. Okay. So now coming to the job. So this job is a new client we have, and the client wants to invest. They're in Germany, they're not in Kenya. And it's a startup. Startup means they don't have money. But even when I say they don't have money, they have access to money. If they feel that they want to invest, they'll invest because they feel it's worth it. But they have an idea of starting this SocialBites app, and they see a gap, an opportunity. And the gap is simple. The person who owns the business, he he can see that he's a marketing guy, but he has 500 restaurants that he works with. I mean, he provides them with delivery services. But these 500 restaurants have no online presence, no social media presence. As far as the business is concerned, they have none. And as such, they miss out on a whole population of young people or even people who are techie, people who would make orders and place orders using their phones. And because they're on social media, that sort of audience is missing. So, what he sees as an opportunity is to um, attract these audiences as new clients to the businesses. And he wants to provide that as a service to this business, as his own business, so that they can see that they have grown their market base, their target audience, by let's say 20 or 30% because of the added traffic that he's bringing online. That's what he wants to do. Okay. Now, he came to us because he thought that we can help him to build the business to be a technology based business. In other words, he has a system or an app which allows for him to do exactly what I've said. But the method he doesn't have. So we're providing him with the plan, we're giving him the method, the strategy, and we're basing it on the technology. That's what we're doing. Okay? So what I need you to do is to there's a bit of research that's needed at this stage because it's a startup. They don't really know how to achieve what they want to achieve. But what they know they want to do is to direct more traffic to restaurants using social media. All right. Now, for us, what is the value proposition we're saying? We're saying the value proposition is this that we're going to develop a system that is comprised of, let's say, apps and business processes. So, two things. The apps would be a web app, for example, and a mobile app. So, these two things. Because of people's behavior, which keeps changing, um, we would have a web app that does what the app does. The mobile app and the web app do the same things. That means you don't really need, let's say, the mobile app. You don't need it if you have a web one. I mean, the web one you should have. So one is redundant. Okay. Yeah. So we're building in redundancy. The reason why I'm suggesting it though is because a lot of people don't want to download apps these days. They want to use the browser. Unless they really need that app and they use it a lot, then they don't want to use it. But there are advantages to having one, like security advantages, privacy advantages. It's more private, it's more secure. So um, I think, and the Germans are very risk averse. They don't like things when they're insecure. They want to know that they're secure. So I think having an app would feed into their feeling of insecurity. But if we do that, if we do an app, then we have to do a hybrid app. Why? Because in Germany, half the people are on iPhones, especially the young. In fact, the figure might be higher if you look at the young. So we want to build an app which is, let's say, working on iPhones, and we also want to build an app which is working on Android phones, both. Okay, if we're going to do that. The value proposition to the Germans would be it's secure. So they'll feel, okay, so let me do this one because it's secure. However, the web app should do the same thing. So what is that thing that the app is doing? That's now the big idea. The big idea, based on what the client is saying, is that we need to move traffic from social media accounts like X or Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp. We want to move traffic from these apps to the website. And when they come to the website, we want to engage the traffic in a way that will make them place orders. That's what we want to do. So you can see that the app on its own cannot bring people from other apps. It can't. The app on its own. You can have the app, it's working, it's ready, but it can't bring people from other apps. So what brings people? It's a business process. All right. So what we need is a means by which we can generate engagement, let's say on Instagram, for example. And that engagement should be designed with two goals in mind. The first goal is to attract people who would love to order food. Okay. Now you can attract many people, but the app has to, at least the business process has to filter people into people who would love to order food. Because anyone can come. You can put something there and many people come, like 10,000 people come. But how many of those people would love to order food? So there has to be some intentionality in what we're doing. So we filter it down. So out of the 10,000, you might find maybe 2,000 wants to order food. Okay, so the app filters out those ones. And then the second thing it does, it now identifies those people who can, let's say, afford to order food, or are the kind of people who generally order food. For example, you might be working in the field, you don't have time to cook, maybe because you do difficult hours, it's inconvenient. So you're the kind of person who orders food all the time. It needs to identify such a person. You see, you might be a tech person and you just love tech. Maybe that's you. So you have to do anything, you just go online. You don't go face to face, you just go online. Okay, so it has to identify that kind of person. So it's one thing to be someone who is hungry and wants to eat and everything and is ready to order food. That's one thing. But it's another thing for you to have that capacity in terms of pay. But we assume people have the money to pay. The other thing is in terms of logistics that you can do. So the app has to know there's some logistical things here. If this person is busy, too busy to cook, and maybe they're single, they don't have people who cook for them, and they're the kind of person who orders food, the app has to have a way of figuring that out. I mean, not the app, the business process. It has to have a way of figuring that out. Another one is if you're someone who is techie and you are always online, like in Instagram, and at some point you get hungry and you want to eat and you want to order, it's convenient, that's for you. It has to figure that out. It has to figure out the different character types. These are like persona types of the people who would be inclined to order food. So when you're doing your personas, you have to think like that. You have to think of the business process as a filtering process. And it's trying to filter out people who are uh, not only interested in food, especially, let's say, it's Turkish food. You're not only trying to just figure out people who are that's now the 2000. But now you want the, let's say, 400 people who are going to do it. You want to narrow it down to that. That has to be the job of the business process. So once you've narrowed it down to these 400 people per day, then you want to direct them from Instagram to the website. That's what you want to do, and give them the option of downloading the app. But in the beginning, they may not want that. So in the beginning, it's to direct them to the website. Once you've directed them to the website knows that anyone who has come through this source has been filtered out. This person is ready. In fact, the business process should give the app the information, the data that would help the app optimize the value to the customer. For example, we should know your age, we should know your interest in terms of food, we should know that you're ready to order right now, or you want to be ordering every week at lunchtime. We should have information like this about you. You see, we have to decide what information. So once we have that information, and that's when you're coming in because the business process took that information, gave it to us. Now we know. Then we speak directly to you. In other words, we generate a menu. We say these are the things that you might be interested in, and these are available at the time that you'd like to have them. And this is the price range that you're able to afford. You see, we already know. So we're building your menu for you based on the business process that gave us this information. So when you look at the menu, it should be a no-brainer. You should say, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Very nice. Artificially intelligent. You should just feel as if it's speaking to me. You see? So this kind of personalized menus. Now, even so, once we have your interest and you're browsing our menu, then the call to action should be a button. Place an order now, or do a booking and have food delivered to you at lunchtime. You see, give options, but it's a call to action. Do you want to book? Do you want to place an order now? You see, it's a big red button. for example, and it's a social bite button, so it's a big one. It's telling you bite now, something like this. That could be the slogan, bite now. Okay. If you're speaking to them, they're interested already, and they're going through the stuff, and they're being called to do something, they'll be thinking about it. You might find your 400, you end up now with, let's say, about 100, saying, okay, I'll place this order now, and maybe another 100 will say, I'll book. That's not bad. Business. It's not bad. It's a scalable model. You see, you can scale. Now, if they book, then the app is connected to a series of services that will allow for food to be delivered. So one of the things would be, of course, the e-commerce. You've made a selection. There's a checkout system. You pay, so it's connected to a payment module. Once you've paid, then it's connected to a delivery module that will bring back the food, and then it's connected to a customer service module in case there's any issues. So those are three things or services that it's connected to: payment gateway, delivery service, and customer service. Okay, so it's built like that, and the process works this way. Um, yeah, then we build our user stories. Beyond that, you place your order. The order goes to, let's say, the kitchen where the food is being cooked. Um, and of course, there's a payment bit, so the user story becomes about payment. Then it moves to the kitchen where the user story is about the cook receiving the order, confirming it, maybe suggesting what time it will be ready, and then responding by saying it's ready, placing an order through a piki or some delivery service, and then it's delivered. And when you receive it, then you terminate the order. I mean, you confirm that it's been delivered. So that terminates the whole activity. So it should have a start and should have an end. Okay, so those are our user stories, and we should identify the main user story and the side supporting user stories that we need. So that's the flow. That's what we want. And that's the big idea. And it's very narrowly focused on bringing real users or real clients from social media to the app. And then from the app, they go through the stories. And at the end, it's terminated. Okay. Now, you can have some post activity if that's necessary, but that would be around advertising and showing them new products, maybe things that are coming up, stuff like that. I mean, we can always extend a bit and say that this is how we'll continue to engage you to let you know about what's coming, what's new, that might interest you. Okay. Now, that's what, if we tell what I've just told you to the client will say, thank you, that's what I want. The next question will be how much, we'll quote, and, and that's how we make money. So it's the same now for you if you're to earn. Like I said, this is a working internship, so you also earn from the internship. You earn because we're earning. What we do is the moment we invoice, your costs are in there as well, so you also earn something. Okay. So I'd like to deliver this to the client as soon as possible. Um, what it is, and we're going to go through it right now with you, just to go to, in case you have questions. But what it is that uh, we're in week 3 of your internship, and I was trying to suggest that we started a bit late. If you can do as much as you can to catch up, so by end of this week, which week ends on Saturday, technically, if it by end of Saturday you have completed week 3, excellent. Then you're up to scratch. Why am I saying that? Well, you're in internship and you have to fill out your log journal. What are you going to fill in your log journal? It's the items under week 1, week 2, and week 3. If you can map them, okay, and then I can sign it off like that. Even though I know you've done it in 1 week, but I can sign them off as things that you have done over week 1, 2, and 3. All right. It's helpful because if you start as if you're starting now, like last week, even this week, if you're starting like now, this is the 25th of July. You have to go through internship for at least 2 months, at most for 3 months. So 25th of August, 25th of September. You see, that's when you will be assessed, 25th of September. If you can fill out the weeks from around 11th when you started up to now, then it'll recognize at least 2 weeks plus this being the third, something like that. See? So I'd encourage you to try as far as you can to try and recognize that so that you finish on the 11th of September. For your graduation to be this year, you need to finish your internship before, they would tell you before October. That means in September. They'll tell you that. Technically, you can still graduate even if you finish in October because they're still processing your marks and all that. But definitely by end of October, now Senate is meeting and deciding, so you don't want to wait for that. You want to do it before that. So it's good if we front load the program, try to get you to finish as fast as you can. It also favors the business. I mean, if we can show the client and explain to them as much as we can invoice them and get some money to come out. This is a startup, so usually with startups, the business is not big business because it's just people who have ideas and they're using their savings to try and start their ideas. So it's not big business. But for you, you can definitely do your internship on this. It's a good job to learn new things. Do you have questions on that, Nelly? I don't hear you. Are you there? Are you speaking?
The social bites, when I read the workbook, it
Yes.
was targeting a young audience.
Yeah.
The young audience is mainly active on social media.
Yeah.
So when you've explained about people, are we narrowing it down to the young people or it's just general?
No, you see, again, so it's a good question because, um, business will tell you we are targeting everyone. But the real question here, when you're talking of personas, is where is 80% of your business going to come from? That's the real question. Okay. Now, if you target, let's say, Gen Z, or compare that with millennials, and then compare that with Generation X, you're going to find that it's your millennials who will have the larger percentage of using the app. Why am I saying that? But let me also say it could be Gen Z. It could also be Gen Z. Yeah. You see, this thing goes by, if it's Kenya, it might be millennials, but in Germany, it might be Gen Z. You see, it goes by disposable income. How much income do you have to spend on food? Because we're not talking of people who, let's say, are young necessarily, people who understand technology. It's people who are young and have money, disposable income. It's both. So you can be young, but you don't have disposable income, or you might be young, but you might be young and you have uh, disposable income. If you have that, you're in our target audience for sure. But you have to be the kind of young person who says that I want to buy food from this app every lunchtime. You have to be that kind of person. Okay. In Germany, I think this number might be larger for Generation Z because Generation Z starts from the age of 13 up to the age of 28. And that age group in Germany have disposable income. Even the ones in school, they have disposable income. So they can make decisions if you market to them to actually buy from this app. And in any population, particularly in Kenya and Germany, I think so also, the younger populations are larger in number than the older ones. The millennials start from age 29 up to 43. They have disposable income. In Germany, unemployment is low, so they're all working. Because they're all working, they have the means to buy this. Now you just have to single filter them out based on the kind of work, the kind of situation, and all that. Okay, so I would say that the primary audience is going to be, I mean, the secondary. These are secondary people. The secondary audience you're targeting would be the Generation Z, and um, then number two would be the millennials. Number two, so it's number one Generation Z, and then number two would be um, the millennials. Even when we say that, 20% of the business will come from outside there. That's okay. Our target remains that. Now, the other thing is this: the who is paying for this? Who is paying? It's interesting, but it's not those millennials, and it's not the Generation Z who are paying. Those ones are paying the restaurants. It's the restaurant that's paying SocialBites. There are 500 restaurants and they will subscribe to SocialBites. So the client of SocialBites is not the person placing the order. It's not Generation Z or the millennial. We're interested in them because they are clients of our client. The client of the app of SocialBites is the restaurant. Okay, that's an important distinction. And what we're saying, it's a subscription model, the business. We're saying to the restaurant that you need to subscribe with us. And if you subscribe with us, we'll increase the traffic of let's say, customers buying from you by 20%, 30%. We're saying something like this. You see? So they'll be interested then to subscribe. How much is subscription? We can agree. Either they pay a lump sum every month or every year, or they pay a transactional fee, which means on every transaction, the client pays. I mean, on every transaction, we get paid. On every transaction, we get paid. So we can provide these kind of options. But either way, it's the restaurant that's paying. You see, if the restaurant's paying, it means that they're forking the money out of their profits. So if, let's say, just for example, hamburger and chips is 1,000 shillings, in Europe, it will be like 9 euros. If it's 9 euros or 10 euros, let's say, then we're saying that the price remains 10 euros, doesn't change. Why? Because the amounts that we're taking, we might be taking, let's say, 3% on every transaction. So 3%, we take it out of the restaurant's profits. So the price to the customer is still 10 euros, whether you're online or you're going physically to the restaurant. But we take that 3% away from the profits of the restaurant, and we've agreed on that. So it's either transactional, or that's how they pay, or it is a lump sum that we agree on. Depending on the plan, they will enter into business. Okay, so our client is not the end user. The end user is the one who's placing the order, Gen Z or millennials. It's the restaurant. Now the restaurant will listen to us if his client, those are the millennials and Gen Z, are listening to us already. If they're talking to us, then our client will listen to us. So we have to develop a language that talks to their client, because the moment we're talking to their client, they will be listening to us. If we can tell them something like, we're talking to 10,000 possible clients of yours, they'll see it to be a very strong statement you're making. Tell them to bring their orders to us. We will do that. And if 10% bring the orders to you, that's 1,000 people, you see. So we have to talk to their clients. Now, what our app needs to do then is to allow for us to produce, you can say, content at the click of a button, not a professional necessarily, because we've already pre-designed everything. But we need to, at the click of a button, to produce content that is engaging on Instagram, Facebook. That's text as well as image that will engage the client. So this is what it's a feature within our app. It needs to be able to do that so that the restaurant can generate this content. Okay, so let's go through the book. I hope it's clear. Feel free to ask another question though. If it's not clear, feel free. I'm now going to go through the book. You can see we have these tasks. In total, the tasks are coming to 10, and they're roughly mapped onto the weeks, but we'll look at the schedule last. So this explains what I've just explained, this one about SocialBites. Basically, there are about 6 or 7 social media big sites. There might be others, but at least whichever social media sites they're on, the idea is the same, that we have what we call a business process that takes the audience from these apps to now the website. That's the aim. And what I mean by business process is simply it's an app which allows you to produce content. You can drop the content that it produces into Facebook. When you drop it there, there'll be some kind of engagement. Yeah, when you drop it there, there'll be some kind of engagement. And that engagement is important because that's the touch point between the sales process and you can say the um, client, the client of our client. So that's an important moment. We want to make sure that we convert anyone who's interested into someone who is in our app, in the website. Okay. So at that point, we want to make sure that the um, information that they're engaging with, let's say it's a meme, it could be animated, it could be a picture with some text, but that meme is interesting enough to make people comment. Now, people on Facebook are different. People on Instagram are slightly different. People on X are different. People on uh, WhatsApp are different. So we have to be sensitive to the app when we're producing the kind of content we're talking about. I'll discuss that more with you, but that's one of the features we want. And with artificial intelligence, it's good because we can use it and build it in a way that it generates the image for us artificially, and then we generate text artificially, which matches the image and matches a message. So we have to have a messaging strategy so that we can inform the artificial intelligence. This is how we want you to produce the image. This is how we want you to produce the text. And then it's done at the click of a button so that the client can just press a button and they have their meme. Then they drop it somewhere, drop it many places, and then they see what happens. You see, like many Facebook groups, they can do that. Then they see what happens. But even that, see what happens. So we will encourage the client to be more proactive. But you've dropped it. Now go and study the analytics. Just see how many mentions you get, how many likes you get, how many hearts you get. And if you get likes, this is what it means. If you get hearts, this is what that means. If you get mentions, people talking and commenting about it, then this is what it means. That sort of engagement can be analyzed, and we'll train the client on how to analyze it so that they can know how to follow through on that. So some things you ignore as someone who's using this kind of system. Other things are like white flags. I mean, you can see clearly that's someone I need to target. So if they're talking like that, you can now talk back to them and tell them, let's go to the other app. That's when you give them the link to the other app if they're talking properly. So that there's that conversion stage. So the our app SocialBites has a meme creator, and then it has what we would call um, a conversion plan. A conversion plan is simply a set of rules that you follow in order to convert someone who is interested into someone who is a client or customer. It's converting them from one state of being, like a non customer, to a state of being a customer. Now, what is a customer? First of all, a customer is someone who goes to your app. That's number one. Every customer goes to your app. Number two is a customer who fits into one of your customer user stories. So when they come there, they see a user story that works for them, they fit into it. That's a customer. A customer is someone who actually executes a full user story. Okay? Because you a customer is someone who has paid you. So if to execute a full user story, it means you've gone through your selection process, you've made payment, and you've placed an order. That's a customer. Okay? And then once you're done with your customer and you have them, then you're interested in customer retention. And that's why we say after that, the app should have, I mean, it facilitates the placing of an order, but then at the same time, it now uses a different approach to market to its own customers. You see, when you're not a customer, we go to social media. When you're a customer, we have details about you, can send you email, but we also know things about you, so we can be specific in what we do with you. We have to have a plan like that. This is how we talk to our customers so that they can place orders again. But the time that customers will place orders in the future is when they're placing the first one. In other words, you can ask them things like, "Do you have? Is this lunch? And would you like to have something for lunch with us again tomorrow?" You can ask them that when they are now interested in having lunch with you today. And if they say yeah, so we can give them the option. You can also book for the whole week, or you can book for the whole month. I mean, we'll keep on telling you what's available, which is nice. Say, okay, that's fine. So you're making your customer, you're marketing to them just in time. Okay, so that's this talk is just trying to introduce you to that. So the objectives are important because at the end of it, the client wants to make sure that these agreed objectives are aligned with what we're doing. So always when you're doing these jobs, never work without the objectives in mind. Everything has to be aligned to the objectives. Otherwise, even what I was telling you might not have been so succinct that our customer is not the end user. Our customer is actually the restaurant. You see, you can't be succinct if you don't know what the objectives are clearly. The expected outcomes speeds from the objectives, but these are the expected outcomes that are listed. I think if you have questions, just feel free because I want to go through this document to make sure that you're clear on what matters most. Objectives and outcomes matter most, even if you don't so much understand anything else. If you understand the objectives and the outcomes, actually start the design. This design approach gives you a sense of the way in which we're doing it. So we're using an iterative method. I want to explain a bit about that. An iterative method is a method that starts with the end in mind. Okay, I'm just adding Jake. So yeah, hi Jake, how are you? Hello Jake.
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. Maybe you.
Salama. So we're in the middle of a different presentation, but we're about to finish. Then we'll start the other meeting. Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah, but you can still be if you want to be around. It's okay. We don't mind. All right. So what we're saying
just
on this one is
check.
that the approach that we're using is one where we're saying that um, where was I? We're saying, yeah, we're using an iterative method. So we're saying that you design, lay more emphasis in your design on completion. Don't lay emphasis on perfection. If you try to perfect your design in terms of making your artifact or whatever it is you're doing, your layout, if you try and make it perfect, that's not a requirement. That's not the method we're using here. If you're designing a button, don't work on perfecting your button. Pick something that is as good as possible that you can work with. You know it's not perfect. Work with it. Move on to what you have to do next. If what you have to do next is a page layout, do the page layout. And don't perfect it. Just have something there. Let it have the minimum requirement in place. Everything should be on its minimum requirement, actually. I don't want you to be artistic, is what I'm saying. If you start becoming artistic, then you'll miss the point here. The point with design is about balancing the visuals and the look and feel with the, let's say, balancing the look with the feel. It should look good, yes, but it should feel good also. So these two things need to be balanced. If it looks good but doesn't feel good, that's not good. If it feels good but doesn't look good, that's not good. So you want to optimize these two things. Don't get caught up in the artistic behavior of trying to perfect anything. Don't do that. Just understand in design, perfection comes iteratively. You'll do it one round, changes will come, feedback, everything. You have a second round of production. So in the second round, you can perfect a bit more. Third round will come, fourth round will come, and each time you're perfecting. So you perfect things in stages, in rounds. But when you're working, aim to complete. Because if you don't complete the work, you're dead in the water. And working with Germans are people of time. They just look at time as a hard thing. If you come 1 minute late, you're 1 minute late. They just see you as late. You wonder, no, you can't punish anybody because you're 1 minute late. But that's how they do it. They would punish you because you're late, even by 1 minute. Okay, it's not Kenya. So you need to emphasize finishing so that at least it's completed, even if it's not done perfectly. That's the main approach. Okay. These key requirements help to break down what it is that we have to do. It helps to break it down. But if you move beyond that and you come to, um, yeah, you come now to, I'm just moving beyond this. You can read all of this, but we're now coming to the tasks. Yeah, you see task one. If you come to the tasks are based on all that I skipped. So they work together. It's almost like the theory of these tasks is all that. And that's important because you want to know and have knowledge before you move in. But the tasks are driven by steps. So this one, the first task is to understand the work scope. We've gone over the work scope. To understand the client's brief, very important because when the client pays, they're paying for you to execute his brief or their brief, you see. That's why they're paying. Even if the brief has mistakes, even if the brief is a fantasy, it doesn't work. They're still paying for it. So they'll pay for you to execute a fantasy. Then comes the mental model. Now, this mental model is a design control. This one. What this is what I've just told you, but visually. So what you need to draw here is the activities. You see the way you draw your scenario diagrams as an example, just to give you an example of how to do this. You take your big picture scenario diagram, all right, and look at your big picture activities. So there's a set of tasks, let's call them, or even activities, let's call them, that are associated with um, social media business processes. So that's a set of activities. There's another set of activities associated with your your system itself, your system of apps, either the web app or the mobile app. And that set of activities is to do with um, delivering the service. Okay. Now it's a set of services, not just one. There are many things in there, but that's another group of activities. So once the service is delivered, and you know the service is simply make selections on the food that you want, the menu, pay, and then have it delivered. So that's the service. Once that's done, then there's what we call the post-service time, because you're now trying to retain your client. Customer retention is a big issue. You want to retain your customer. So there has to be some post-service activity, and it's mainly marketing or oriented, just trying to persuade them to stay. Okay, so there are three parts to this mental model. There's what you can say is the start, which is in social media, just to filter down your client. There's the middle, which is the main value proposition is in the middle. Okay, and then comes the post service where you're trying to retain them. All right, so those three things need to be clarified. Not in Germans again. Don't write things for the sake of showing that look, I've written it down. No, they'll ask you and interrogate you. So you have to be able to say, well, this activity, this is what it does and how it does it. This next activity, this is what it does, this is how it does it. So the first activity, social media, you can say customer acquisition. That's the first activity. It's a set of activities that make up that, which they could ask you now, which activities make it up? You have to know. In the mental model, it may not matter too much, so you don't emphasize it so strong. As long as you've said that, first of all comes social media, customer acquisition. And then you can have a list here, what activities it comprises. And you see a list is not as prominent as when you draw it visually. But you can decide, you're a designer, so you can decide how to emphasize things. But once people understand that comes first, then it's followed by the main activity, which is to do, you could say, with ordering and paying and delivering. You show that, and then it has its list of sub activities. And then comes the post activity, which is concerned now with advertising or keeping the client interested. You don't advertise, if you advertise to people in a generalized way, like these YouTube ads which pop up, people want to escape from those ads. But if you know something about someone and you're specific, they'll click and stay with your ad. So you need this mental model, very important. You need to have, and then do it in a way that communicates. So, like I said, don't be casual, just do it in a way that communicates. Then comes this one, which is branding and asset design. So when you're in school, we spend a lot of time on branding and asset design. It's designing your pages, your buttons, look and feel. You apply the principles of design and all that. So come up with um, your iconography and your brand identity, all these things. Okay, Alvan's come. Okay, so Alvan, yeah, just give me 2 minutes. I try and finish this in 2 minutes. Okay, then we come to designing persona profiles. So for persona profiles, um, there are two personas. There's the primary customer, that's the restaurant owner. So they have a persona. Then you design the persona of your um, millennials and Generation Z. Okay, those are the secondary personas, right? So qualify them. There are two different types of personas, but you want to capture that. And then you want to build now your, well, before that, you wanted to build your use case diagrams. So your use case diagrams are really more detailed mental models, more detailed mental models. So now you unpack your mental model. So those activities, big picture, you ask yourself what sub activities make up these activities. And that becomes your scenario drawings. And you know how to do that. So you move on to this one where we have the build user stories. So these user stories are focused on the big idea. we're doing a minimum viable product. So build your use. Don't have every user story there. No, build the user story that is central to the idea. Okay, so you know the path that you want the customer to go, so maintain that. Otherwise, you can have hundreds of user stories, but you want to maintain it on the one that is pertinent. Okay, and then you do a wire flow and an interaction diagram. So this is transitioning into the next phase of work. But you can see this is already task 9. It's probably you're probably on week 6 now. This is week 6, and then you build a prototype. Okay, so prototype will end phase 1 of the work. Phase 2 of the work is coming, but that we'll discuss next. But you've got to aim for this. There is a work outline which you will follow to guide you on when you're supposed to finish all this. I'm also sharing that work outline with the client. So they'll be having the expectation that by a certain point they'll be able to see this prototype. Okay, so that's how I want it to end. But if you have questions, Nelly, maybe just feel free so that we can wind down based on that. Any question? Are you still there? Or you hear me?
Yes, I am. No questions for now.
All right then. I need to enter into this next meeting, but that's good. If you have any questions online, you can just WhatsApp me also, and we can discuss it further. But I need to tell you that I'll be talking to the client by the weekend, so I may also WhatsApp you based if there's something the client needs us to address early. Okay. All right then. So thanks, man. Let me then move into the next meeting. But thanks for coming for this one.